The Erstestadt was a dying empire by 4300. It had spread itself as thin as it possibly could have in its long existence. In 4301, the southern reaches of the Erstestadt realized that things were crumbling. Central regions had broken away as independent and were barely scraping by alone. Many of the western regions were independent or warring with each other over vast tracts of land to no avail. Northern states cracked into two before completely disintegrating, eventually forming independent nation-states. Stornland remained strong, and the southern states were debating on a course of action. Leaders in the south were proposing plans to one another in the city of Weissenberg in the heartland of the south, in a country now known as Opfelden. Some wanted to grab at the central regions and include them in a process of unification. Others wanted to leave them be. Some didn't even want to unify the south and follow the trends of the central and western states of the Erstestadt. A few did. Denno, as an example, broke away from the southern states as an independent principality. When Denno left, the remaining states decided to unite under one flag and one king in a consolidated constitutional monarchy. In Deces of 4301, after a year of deliberation, the south became the Opfelden Empire. They soon set to choose their ruler and looked to the wealthiest family in the region, called the Franz. The Franz family had lived in Opfelden for 240 years, farming the lands and investing heavily in their own trade industry, owning 3 ships that sailed around Opfelden Bay and Zagria at its farthest reaching modern-day Marma. The head of the Franz family was a 46-year-old called Kleinman Franz, commander of the army of Opfelden. Kleinman graciously accepted the role of king of Opfelden and was moved to Weissenberg, where the regional capital was. So, for 532 years, the people of Opfelden were ruled by a monarchy. Everything changed, however, in 4832, when revolution sprang to the streets. It was in 4832 that King Maximilian IV began to arrest, torture, and kill heretics of the crown. Maximilian IV had also placed the city under Kriegsrecht, or martial law, and on January 12th of that year a force of 500 royal guards opened fire into a crowd of protesters. Thus began the revolution, and shortly after, a provisional Congress was created and took 12 representatives from each state to govern this new and revolutionary government. When the provincial Congress had a long and arduous debate over whether war was the right choice, orator and eventual president of Opfelden, James Grosson, gave a speech in which he stated, "Brothers, we shall fight and die for our children's freedom, or live long enough to see them lose it." He continued, "I shall appeal to one thing and one thing only, and that is liberty. We must not fail in our attempts to stop the long reign of tyrants past, present, and future. Our responsibility is to pave the way for the future, and if that means we shall fall in battle, then let it be. And even if we fail, we will at least have the satisfaction that we fought and tried to obtain the freedom we deserve." Shortly thereafter, the Congress voted to build a volunteer army led by Delegate Spencer Ashby. Ashby was given the title of Supreme General of the Army. Within months, the Congress raised an army of 23,000 volunteers, farmers from the plains and lowlands, men from the mountains in the north, and soldiers from the cities across the nation, united under one banner to end the reign of the Franz family. In response, King Maximilian ordered the capture of the Congress, and more importantly, General Ashby. Moving out, the royal army under the command of General Henry Frond, younger brother to Maximilian, moved towards the city of Newcoland, where the Congress was based. Ashby's army advanced out to meet the royal army. The campaign finally ended when the armies met at the town of Fry Run. Here, Ashby seized the initiative and launched a counterattack on the royal army, and seized the day. Though the battle was a victory for the rebels, Ashby suffered heavy casualties, which led the Battle of Fry Run to be one of the bloodiest of the Revolution. Out of 12,000 men engaged, 2,000 were casualties, 923 of which were killed, and that was only on the rebels' side. The royals suffered over 1,000 killed and 3,000 wounded. Though the rebels saw mild success following the Battle of Fry Run, it took another 4 years for them to win the revolution. It was in the fall of 4836 that the rebels pushed on the capital. On August 15th, the rebels stormed the Franz castle in Weissenberg to capture the royal family. They battled through the streets of the capital city for 3 days before reaching the hill upon which the royal castle was positioned. General Ashby watched as hundreds of his men stormed the hill, fortified with artillery and the elite royal guard who fought extremely well. However, by evening, they had collapsed and surrendered the castle. The royals had fled in the meantime to a farm village in Denno. Maximilian was given a short trial by a jury who knew that they would charge him for his crimes and sentence him to death. Shortly following his sentencing, Maximilian IV pleaded with his jurors, telling them that he could force his brother to surrender after all the fighting was finished and make peace. He was shot to death on the steps of the city hall rather than the courtyard, as he pulled a small dagger from his boot and tried to kill a man. Unknowingly, General Henry Frond was now the king, preparing for one last push into the city to take it. By this point, August 28th, the Revolutionary Army had begun to dig in, and the Congress had signed a Declaration of Independence. On August 29th, General and King Henry Frond pushed to take the city with 15,000 men and engaged in a fight for 8 days before falling back. On Novus 11th, Ashby attacked the weak royal line and crumbled it, sending it running, and Frond soon surrendered after that. He was executed by firing squad in the city hall courtyard. Thus the revolution was over. The last remnants of monarchy was no longer in position in Opfen, and the Provincial Congress renamed the former monarchy to the Opfelden Republic and set to work appointing a president for a new republic.